thank you so much for coming. And I'm delighted to be here this evening. I'm being paid a fee to be here tonight, and thank you so much for that. And that's going to breast cancer, so thank you very much. Cheers.
You had a very hard upbringing when you started out. You were selling hot rolls and newspapers from a really young age to bring in money for the family. By the age of 12, you were working in a fruit shop. At what point did you decide that you wanted to become an entrepreneur, and how did you go about becoming one?
I think that I decided to be an entrepreneur right back from when I was 6. I used to play with my cousins, you know, the post office that you used to get and all the rest of it, and the little shops with the scales, and I used to boss them all about. And I just loved business. That was my life. So I didn't have Duran Duran and Spandau Ballet above my bed. Well, I didn't have a bedroom. My bed was right beside my mum and dad's, because we grew up in a really small tenement house. It didn't even have a bathroom. We used to go down for a bath 3 times a week to the local swimming pool. And but I always wanted to go into business. I don't know where that came from, and I think that's what you've got to want to do. If you don't want to start a business and you don't feel it inside, do not start it, because you'll be giving up, you know, your weekends. You'll be working 24/7. You probably won't be getting any holidays. You'll have to take risks, but you know, all of that really does pay off in the future if you stick in there. And business is like a roller coaster, and I'm not joking. I've had so many trials and tribulations, and almost gone bust, excuse the pun, but almost gone bust about 4 times. But I always loved the movie The Lion King, when Rafiki says it's the circle of life. And that's just what business and life is all about. So I remember starting a business when I was 10. When you said 12, that was my second job. And I started a business when I was 10 as a newspaper rounds the whole of the East End. And I did that because my brother died, and my mum and dad obviously were so depressed. And my mum got made redundant for depression. That wouldn't happen these days. But and then when I was 11, I had 17 teenagers working for me. And I used to always watch Dynasty in Dallas and say, one day I'm going to have that big house and I'm going to have that car. And I suppose that's what motivated me back then. That doesn't motivate me now, but it did back then.
One of the things that stops people starting a business is they think they haven't got a good idea. They don't know where to look for a good business idea. You've already mentioned a couple of ideas you had. How did you come up with the idea for Ultimo?
I was so frustrated by the age of 24 when I hadn't come up with a business idea. I was saying, oh my goodness, I'm over. I'm too old to start a business now. And when I was speaking in New York a few months ago, there was a guy in the audience that was starting a business, and he was 68. 68. So I think you can be any age starting a business, but of course you need that one idea. And I did have lots of ideas, but when I used to do the business plan and sum it all up, I just knew in my heart that it wasn't going to work. And my advice to anyone that wants to start a business is, if you don't believe in it and you don't feel it right in your heart, do not start. You've got to absolutely feel it and say, do you know what, this is going to be a challenge, but I'm going to stick with it and I'm going to do it. Because successful people, believe you me, there's very, very few successful entrepreneurs who have made it overnight. It takes a lot of blood and sweat and tears to make it. So you've just got to dig your heels in and not give up at all.
Do you think that there are particular characteristics that you've got that have made you successful? I mean, there's a lot of debate going on, are entrepreneurs born or made? Is it something that was innately in your character, do you think? Or do you think that anybody can learn how to be an entrepreneur?
For me, I think I was born with it. I do think that you can teach it as well. If you have that can-do attitude and that sheer determination and fire in your belly, and you always, if someone says to you, but you can't do that, I used to always say, but tell me why I can't. I can. You know, tell me, I can do it, and I will do it. And I used to always love showing people and proving them wrong. So I think as long as you've got those kind of key ingredients, then I think you can become an entrepreneur. And it's always good to learn from others, and never, ever, ever be afraid to ask questions. I used to ask questions all the time. I'm dyslexic, so at school I was dreadful, and I left school at 15 because my dad woke up when he was 38 and he was paralysed from the waist down, a disease called hemangioba, blood vessels in the spinal cord. But I left school and I had that sheer, I'm going to make it in the business world. I'm going to be the female Richard Branson. And people used to say, but you're from the East End of Glasgow, that you are written off before you've even started. And I am from the East End, but incredible working background, but they're amazing people.
There's a wonderful story about when you first launched your bras in Selfridges. You hired some actors to pretend to be plastic surgeons and got them to picket the store outside, and that caused a lot of attention. Now that's a very incredibly brave and dynamic thing to do for somebody just starting out in business. How important do you think it is for the budding entrepreneurs here today to do something really different and special, and did it work?
Yeah, well, I only had £500 left to launch Ultimal. I was £480,000 in debt. I had my house up security to the bank. I just had a baby as well, my third baby. I went back to work 48 hours after I had Bethany, which I'm not proud about, but I had her early. I had her before the launch. She was due after the launch. I went into labour in the office. And I had to do it because I then had 3 children, and sometimes you've got to do what you've got to do. But I suppose in business, you've got to have balls of steel. Seriously, you've got to. You've got to be able to have those balls to take on those big guys. And I tell you, I had bigger balls than any of them. And £500 left. How do you get PR and marketing spend for £500? You probably get an advert for, selling your bike. That's probably what that costs. So I just took a risk, and I thought, well, I've got nothing to lose. So I hired 12 actors, and I dressed them up as plastic surgeons, and I had them shouting outside Selfridges, ban the Ultimal bra, don't go in there and buy it, you'll put plastic surgeons out of a job, it'll give you an amazing cleavage, and when you take your bra off, you won't have that, so you need us, and all the rest of it. So they were shouting, and what happened was this got to all the news desks around London, and within half an hour, all the paps were there outside Selfridges. 68 photographers turned up, and it created £54 million in press overnight. And then we sold out in 5 hours, 6 months of stock, and Selfridges said they'd never seen anything like it since the Furbies at Christmas. So we were on our way. So be creative, think outside the box. And I do believe that the less money you have, the more creative you do become, because you don't have a choice when you have no money.
And you chose the name Ultimo. It's a fantastic name. It sounds very sophisticated, very Italian. How did you come up with the name? And also, for the people here, how important is a name to your business? How much time should they be thinking about what they should call their business?
The name is really, really important. You have to be different. You have to, depending on what your target market is, but I did want it to be high-end and in the prestigious department stores, and I just kept thinking and thinking. It probably took me about 8 weeks to come up with a name, and then there was designing the U, which was really, really important as well. I designed it like a breast, and all the rest of it. So you've just got to think about your logo, because your logo is so important. And And it is really important, even if you are creating a brand or creating a service, if you're a service provider, it's really, really important to write a brand Bible. Without a brand Bible, you really don't have a brand. And I love, I now mentor 105 people, and the first thing I teach them is how you write that brand Bible.
Can you just explain what a brand Bible is? Is it the logo and the colours and the name and all the rest of it?
What the brand stands for, the price point, the size range, if it's like, for example, lingerie, who you're trying to target, what's their disposable income. It's just it's like a Bible of your brand and what you should do with it. And I then created 9 brands because I made sure that each one had their own brand Bible and they all had their own DNA. And people were saying, no, the big boys only have their one brand and that's it. And I thought, well, economies of scale, I need to get more business. And there's only so much you can do with one brand. So I decided that I would start other brands as well. And then we started other brands. So we started off at the bottom, the supermarkets. And we became one of the biggest supermarket brands. It was called Michelle for George for Walmart, Asda. And then we created a brand for all the department stores, and then a brand for Harrods, etc. So we had all these different brands, but we had, the same factories, and we used up all the stitching time, so it was good.
And also, you're very well known for continually inventing new products. Forgive me if I'm wrong, but you did the backless bra and then the backless frontless bra, and it sort of went on from there. How important was innovation, and did you realise it at the time that it was important, and what can people learn from that here?
Yeah, no, I didn't realise that innovation was so vital for any business. I had one product in 2 colours, and I thought I could rely on them for the rest of my business career. And then the disaster came when we had a distributor who ran off with over £1 million of money in America, and it almost made me go bust, excuse the pun again, and I almost took my life at that time as well, because my house was about to get taken off me, and it was just a dreadful, dreadful time. And I then realised that you've got to come up with new inventions all the time and give the customers and the retail customers, bring them excitement, bring them theatre to their shop floor, make people go in there and ask for it, and excite the press all the time. So that's when, we started to come out with all the celebrity brands and everything else, but it's absolutely vital. Innovation is key for the growth of any business. If you stand still and you don't move on, the business will stand still.
You just mentioned the word celebrity, and you've used celebrities a lot to promote your products, I think right from the early days. How effective is that? I mean, it must have been quite expensive to get celebrities, but does it pay off? Does it always work?
Well, the press thought it was so expensive, but the secret is it wasn't as expensive as what the press thought. Because I used to plead with celebrities, please get my thong on and my bra on, and I'll make you famous, even more famous. And then there became a time where Penny Lancaster, who was Rod Stewart, the legend, Rod Stewart's girlfriend, after 2 years we had a little bit of a issue with the contract. A contract came to an end. I never fired her, as all the press said, and I replaced her with his ex-wife. And that created over £200 million of PR constantly. And then it got to a stage where celebrities were begging us, can I be the face of Ultimo? Can I be the face and body of Ultimo? And I'd go, we'll have lunch. And then if they were rude, I would just not sign them. We created this phenomenon of this brand, which I've now sold. But yeah, that was a difficult decision as well, but maybe that's too far on in your questions.
Well, one thing I did want to just pick up on is you mentioned the press, but of course when you were starting out in business, social media didn't exist. There wasn't Facebook or Twitter or Instagram. It's a very different situation now, and all the people here, if they decide to start a business, that's something they obviously need to factor in. Do you think, how important is it for them to use social media, and are there any pitfalls to using it? And how do you think it differs from when you started out?
I think social media is fantastic. It has its good points and negative points. Probably today is a negative point for me, but it can help your business in a big way, and it's free as well. And you guys are young. You're the technical wizards. I'm the old one learning every day. I didn't have anything like that starting my business, and I wish I did. Didn't have Google, we didn't have anything, and now you guys have got so much information at the touch of a button, and it's fantastic, and we should all get on with it. And Twitter and Instagram and LinkedIn is incredible if you're trying to contact someone for a job. I mean, it's unbelievable how you can get to them, because we've all turned into this. We're freaks, if you look at tables in restaurants and everyone's on their phones, the CEOs are the same. They're always picking up their phones and looking at their LinkedIn. Now you've got a chance to get straight into their phone, their screen, instead of the personnel department getting a CV and ripping it up, So you've got a lot more opportunities than when I had.
Are there any pitfalls and dangers, though, with social media that people should watch out for?
Lots, because when you go on there, if you are working for someone, you really are speaking on behalf of that organisation. So if you're targeting someone or you're threatening someone on Twitter, seriously, you can lose your job over it. You've got to be really, really careful.
Your business nearly went under in 2001 because you were having problems with the distributors, the banks started closing on you. Lots of businesses do go under. How did yours not? How did you manage to keep it afloat? And what did that whole experience teach you?
Because I think that I was networking constantly. And I think that what we all need to work on is our confidence. We're all like, oh no, I don't want to send that email. I don't want to go and see them. Oh, I'm too shy. I'm too scared in case they say no. So what we've got to do is go there and look for opportunities and approach people. And I would say that when the distributors ran off with all the money, around about 6 months before that, as I said, I was networking like crazy. But you've got to watch that the networking doesn't get too much and then you take your eye off the ball with the business. But I got invited by Richard Desmond, who's one of the biggest media guys in the country. He owns OK magazine, he owns the Express newspaper and the Star and many other magazines. And there was only, I think it was 12 of us at his boardroom table having lunch, and his butler was there and everything. And I sat down next to this guy from the bank. And I said to him, are you Richard's bank manager? He says, not quite. I says, oh, right, what's your job at the bank? And he says, well, my name's Sir Keith Whitson, and I'm chairman of HSBC Global, and I'm based in Hong Kong. So he ran the bank, HSBC, the biggest bank in the world. And then after about an hour, we were laughing and joking, and he said, so, how do you measure someone for a bra? What does the tape do? And I says, no, I'll teach you how to measure with just your eyes, Sir Keith. And we started to, the waitresses coming in with the wine and everything, I started to say, right, this is how you can guess that girl's size, like what you've got to do. And I was helping them guess their bra sizes. So he gave me his private mobile number, and that was it. And when I got to that stage in my life where the distributor, which I spoke about earlier, ran off with the money, and, my marriage was going through tough times because my husband joined the business 3 years after, and I could mentor people on that, on getting into business with your partners. I got that moment where I just didn't want to go on anymore, and I wanted to basically end it all, my life. It was so bad. And my mum came rushing round to the house and she was shaking me. What the hell are you doing? There's families that can't feed their kids round the world, and there's families, their kids are dying of leukemia, etc., and you're thinking of ending it all over a business, over some money. I went, it's not, it's like 1.4 million quid. And she shook me, and she said, you must know someone. She kept shaking me, and I shouted, Sir Keith Whitson. And she went, who the hell is Sir Keith Whitson? And I told her the story, and she says, where's the bloody card? And I says, over in that drawer, 2 down, because I've got OCD and I know where everything is. And I found the card and I called him. And cutting a very long story short, he sent in his team. They couldn't do it in the time that my current bank wanted me to repay the debt. And asked for an extension. They said no. Went back to Sir Keith. He said no, he needed 6 weeks. The bank came in, the bank I was with, to close us down that Friday. And then my PA ran in and said, Sir Keith Whitson's on the phone. Picked up the phone. I says, my life is over. My husband is telling the staff it's over, clear your desks. And he says, Michelle, my darling, welcome to HSBC. And so the reason why I'm telling you all these stories is that you've got to go out there, guys. This life is not a dress rehearsal. This is real. You've got to decide what you want to be in life. And whatever you want to be, within limits, I can't be a bloody brain surgeon or anything like that, but if you want to make it in the world of business, you just got to push on and do things different, and don't be scared to ask, and don't be scared of going out and looking for opportunities. And that's what I've done my whole career.
You mentioned about working hard and putting the hours in. Can you put that into context compared to somebody going into a regular 9-to-5 job? I mean, a lot of people here will be deciding what to do with their future. Do you go and get a job with holidays, or do you start your own business? How do they compare, do you think?
Well, no matter if you want to start your own business, you've got to, as I say, be able to take risks and everything else. But if you're going to work for someone, with someone, as I always say, I need good people like you guys. If you're going into the workplace and you want to go up the ladder and progress in your career, then you've got to put that extra bit in. You've got to treat it like your own business. Being blunt, you can't take the piss with people, right? Because they'll find out and it'll only come back on you. So, go in there. If you just want to do the same job for the rest of your life, there's nothing wrong with that whatsoever. Each person, it's what you want to do and what turns you on, what clicks your mouse, floats your boat, lights your fire, whatever you want to say it. Only you can decide, no one else. But all I would say to you is never, ever, ever blame anyone around you if you're not successful. Don't blame anyone because of where you're from. Don't blame anyone for what education you managed to get. Don't blame anyone because you're a woman or because of the colour of your skin. It's down to you. None of that makes any difference. Yes, we all have barriers in life and everyone's got a story. But if you can get over those barriers and stick in there, you will, trust me, you will be mega successful.
You get up really early every day to work out with a fitness trainer, and you look fantastic. How important?
Oh no, you haven't seen me with my clothes off.
Don't quite know what to say to that.
No. There's lots of bumps and lumps.
But how important is it, do you think, to stay? You obviously need quite a lot of stamina to run a business, to create. How important is the whole sort of mind, body, spirit thing to stay fit and to not let yourself kind of sit around, I don't know, not eating and sleeping properly? Is that something? I mean, particularly students, who I assume you all just eat rubbish all day long.
Yeah, but they can
drink
do
all night. Is that right? I don't know.
They can do all that just now. But seriously, if I would have been in the same mindset 10 years ago, it would have been amazing. But you should never ever regret anything either in life. Every day is a school day and every day you learn. And I got so miserable. I was 8.5 stone overweight. And I was a size 22. And the business was taking over my life. It sucked me in so much, I cannot tell you. Well, I wrote my book, my autobiography, My Fight to the Top, which came out in March, and it's got a lot more detail in that. But I was on the beach with Rachel Hunter one day, the supermodel, and she's the same age as me. And I actually was crying because I had these big elasticated black trousers on. And she says, "What's wrong with you, Michelle?" And I just said, "I'm so miserable. I can't get out of this body. I'm hiding muffins in the linen cupboard. I'm eating pizza during the night. Honestly, I'm drinking 15 cans of Iron Brew a day." And I don't know how to stop it, because that was my release, was eating. I was almost bursting. And she says, well, why don't you treat your body like a business? And it was just click, just like that. And she says, and you've got to, when you lose the weight, do your own lingerie photo shoot to encourage women to do the same thing. I said, well, I'm not doing that. But actually, I did do that, and it was a one-off shoot, and the bloody press keep printing those pictures 5 years later.
Which are fabulous.
So, yeah, oh God, no. But now I'm 8.5 stone lighter. I train every day. I train like an athlete, because I'm a determined little bugger. And I train with Ruben Tabares, who trains David Hay and Tiny Temper and Dynamo. And I train, I sleep 4.5 hours a night. And I get up and I go and I train, because I do believe, and this, honestly, take it from me, I'm older than you, healthy mind, healthy body equals healthy career, healthy business, because you've got more energy. If you give yourself 1 hour a day for you, 1 hour a day, and I always used to say, I'm too busy for me. I've got the 3 kids, I've got the businesses, I've got this, I've got that. Take 1 hour a day out for you. And when you're on a flight and you hear the safety demonstration, and the stewardess says, you know, take a mask first to yourself first, and don't help others until you help yourself first. It's true. You've got to help yourself first before you can help anyone else around you. And if you're happy, everyone else will be happy. If you smile, someone will smile back. See? And that's true. You know, we've a lot of us have become negative, you know, and negativity spreads. Negativity is bad. We've all got to wake up and be positive and say, no, I am going to do it. Isn't life wonderful? Isn't life amazing? It really, really is. I've only just discovered that in the last 18 months, I would say, because I had 2 years of shit, really, really bad crap went on in my life. Yeah, bad divorce.
You've recently taken on the role of, I don't know what the formal title is, but Startup Czar, or whatever the title is. You're going around the country looking, as I understand it, at startups. You're going to be making a report for the government. Why did you take the role, and what have you discovered so far that perhaps you didn't know before about startups?
Well, I'm really, really passionate about startup businesses and entrepreneurs. And when the Prime Minister and Ian Duncan Smith asked me to do it, I thought, wow, you know, this is incredible. I've already been to Manchester twice. I'm 8 weeks into the report. I've got to deliver the report in June. And I'll tell you something, I'm working exceptionally hard, because they just thought I would stay in my office and write it up. But I had said to them, the only way I'm going to find out what we need to do, what we need to change, is actually go out there, speak to entrepreneurs, speak to startups, speak to people who are on benefits, speak to the banks. I was with the head of Lloyd's yesterday, and I'm like, what are you going to do? It's just, and I said to them, I'll give up my time, but that report is not going to sit in your bottom drawer. It needs to change. And they're up for change, and we have to change. And other than a few negative points where I kind of used a government car for 15 minutes to drop me at the station, I'm giving up 50 days of my time for nothing. Yeah, I get accused of spending taxpayers' money, but other than that, I'm loving it.
What do you think could be done to help more people start up businesses? And do you think we need to be helping people to start up businesses, or should we just let them get on with it?
No, absolutely. I mean, I can't go into the report at the moment, or I'll be in the press again tomorrow.
Absolutely.
So, because it's just 8 weeks into it, and I've got another 7 months to go.
But in general?
In general, I always have said that we need to network more. We need to make people feel confident and work on their confidence. We need a mentor. We need funding. When I started up, I got £5,000 from the Prince's Trust. What an incredible organisation. I sat on the board for 10 years after that. And if I didn't have the mentor and I didn't have the funding, I wouldn't be sitting here today. The two need to come together. And I would say that space as well. You know, office space is so bloody expensive. I'd say that we need space. We need hubs. We need to create a network, communities. We need to all come together and help one another. And the banks and the government, you know, I see it as this massive, massive big jigsaw puzzle with huge big pieces. And those huge big pieces all fitting into one. And I'm already mapping it out so far. My lounge is just full of pieces, papers everywhere. Even though I've got OCD, at night it all comes out.
You talked about business ideas and about how you find a name for things. To what extent should people here be helping themselves? I mean, perhaps by you know, collaborating with each other and talking things through. Is it helpful to have informal feedback from other people? If somebody here is starting up a business, should they be getting their friends around saying, what do you think of this? What do you think of that? Is that a helpful thing?
Yeah, of course. I mean, what I would do if I was you guys, I mean, I'm sure you do it, maybe you do it, is that you've got this fantastic, you know, place here. So why doesn't someone come up and pitch every week or something? And you all say, I don't think your pitch was great because of this and because of that. And I always love, you know, criticism, and it's feedback, and it's how you learn and how you go on, and constructive criticism is good. So just bounce off each other and help one another as well. And I think for the women, and I know that I help guys and women, but just for the women, just remember, you won't get anything in life if you're bitchy, and women have to help women more. We have to come together more, because I'm not sitting here saying, oh, poor us, because I've said to you, don't do that. But guys do have their rugby, their football, their golf, their this, their that. Women, traditionally, we don't have that. So you've got to come together more and help one another more. And I think that will make a massive difference when we do more of that.
So actually be a lot more supportive and collaborative, do you think?
Yeah, that's the way. Just help one another, and you know, that's what I said to that Katie Hopkins, who's a pain in the arse. You know, she just went about everything in a bitchy way, you know, and that never helps anyone. Never helps anyone. And what goes around comes around. And always, I was given this advice by Tom Hunter, well, Sir Tom Hunter, who was Scotland's first billionaire. And he says, Michelle, if you do these three things every single day, you'll be a good person and you'll be successful. And that's number one, work the hardest you've ever worked in your life. Number two, play the hardest you've ever played in your life. If you can't have fun, there's no point in working hard. And three, always give something back, no matter how small or how big. Every day give something back, because it will come back to you tenfold. That's great.
What about motivation? How important was purely making money as a motivation, or were there other motivating, driving factors? And how important is it for people here to identify what is driving them forward and motivating them?
Money was my total, I'm going to be really honest with you, money was my total aim, and materialistic things. And that's all I wanted, because I grew up with nothing. And when I got married, I had nothing as well, and that's all I wanted, to have money. And I was sick to death every time I put my cash line in, it would spit out and say, you know, F off. And I was just sick of that. I was sick of having no money. So everything for me was about money. And then I had 5 cars in the driveway, 5 cars. And then I had every pair of shoes known to man. And then I had 2 houses, and, you know, I had a cleaner and a driver and a gardener, and honestly, a team of staff in the house. And then I took my mum to the Dorchester for a night, and I picked up the phone and I said, how dare you? My pillow menu, pillow for sleeping, is not in my room. How dare you? Well, my mum almost crashed my head with the phone. she banged this phone off me. And she says, how dare you speak to someone like that? you've totally forgotten where you've come from. She started this massive argument in the suite in the Dorchester. And she says, I'll tell you, young lady, you didn't even have a pillow when you grew up. And now you're asking for a pillow menu. You've got 5 cars in your driveway. You've got sweeping staircase. Your house is like Dynasty. Because I wanted the house like Dynasty. Where did it all go wrong? This is ridiculous. And, you know, she gave me a telling off. And I then realised, what am I doing? Why am I chasing the money? Because I was chasing for happiness. And I was in a very abusive marriage. It's all in my book. And I thought that another car I would get, I would be happy. Another dress I would get, I would be happy. And I'll tell you something, money, seriously, does not make you happy. It really, really doesn't. We all need it for, you know, I suppose options and decisions and our life. You know, we need to eat, we need to live with a roof over our heads and all the rest of it. But I'll tell you, money, when it got to my stage, it was evil.
So actually, you're saying there needs to be another motivation in there, really.
Yeah, and that's when I sold the first part of the business after my husband ran off with my head designer. And that's now the best thing that ever happened, because I'm the happiest inside and out, because I wasn't happy inside. And they're getting married this weekend, so good luck to them. And that's good. But I think after a bad marriage, it just, you know, it kind of took over my life. And now that's why I decided, the first bit of the business I sold, and then I went to my mum again. My mum and my dad are my best friends, you know, they're superb. They just knock me down if they think that I'm getting above myself, and which hasn't happened in quite some time, and it won't. But my mum said to me, what's wrong with you? I said, I feel that I've got to go out there and I've got to help more people now. I've been, you know, in Ultimo for 20 years now. Well, 20 years as a company, 17 years as a brand, because it took 3 years. I said, I want to change my life, because I just got over a really bad divorce. I got over where I was drinking almost 2 bottles of wine a night for 18 months, crying myself to sleep, fighting for the business, fighting for the kids. And she says, well, what is it that you want to do? And I said, well, I want to sell the rest of it, and I want to tour the world, and I want to inspire as many people as I possibly can, and finish my book and do all these other things. And she says, well, what's stopping you? And I hung up my bra, and I left, and, you know, it's now part of 63,000 people and a turnover of 1.7 billion, and they'll do really, really well with it. It was 3 Sri Lankan brothers that bought it, and they're incredible. And I'm touring with the same company as Tony Robbins around the world, speaking. And I'm going to Vietnam next month and everything. And I just love that. And, you know, never be, ever be scared of change. I think change is courage. And thank God I made that change.
And it's really interesting you say that, because you are an inspiration for many people. I'm sure many people here from what you've achieved from nothing. And when you were growing up, did you have a sort of a role model, is perhaps the wrong word, but someone that you looked up to? I mean, you mentioned Richard Branson earlier, that you could say, actually, one day I aspire to that.
Yeah, well, you know.
And who were they?
Well, when people say, you know, who's your role models, it is my mum and dad. But I would say people like Richard Branson, yes, he's a great guy and fantastic entrepreneur, and he's dyslexic as well. And,
yes.
And I would say Oprah Winfrey, she was a big inspiration to me. And powerful women, like, and honestly, I didn't agree with all of her policies, but what a woman she was. You know, 4.5 hours sleep a night, and taking on the country on her own, basically. And that was, you know, Baroness Thatcher and Margaret Thatcher. And I know some of you will think, oh, in horror, but really as a woman growing up, I mean, she was powerful. She encouraged a lot of women as well, so I would say her. And Madonna for constantly reinventing herself. Yeah, I would say her. Yeah.
One of the things that holds people back from starting a business is the fear of failure. You know, what will I do if I fail? I'm sure there's a lot of people here. I'd love to start a business if I knew I could succeed, but what will I do if I fail? How do you get over that fear of failure to actually try? Can you offer some advice?
No, it's brilliant to have it. Seriously, don't get rid of it. I wake up every single morning with the fear of failure, and that's what drives me. And when I stop having that, then I'll give up, because it's just, I can't do it. And what's happened in the last few weeks, which I know it's in one of your questions, but sometimes it's good to get out of your comfort zone, because then you'll grow. And it's good to be scared, and it's good, I can't do this and I can't do that. No, I always say you can't, but I do fear that failure. And that's what makes me push on. And that's what makes me say, well, do you know something? I'm just as good as him, and I'm just as good as her. And if I've got no qualifications, then I'll just give it a bigger and a better fight. So that's what I do all the time.